Tim, how's it going? Happy Tuesday.
Sure, you as well, man. You doing all right?
Doing well. So for our students and guests listening to this episode today of the BC Zoom room, could you give
Yeah,
us a quick kind of 2-minute overview of kind of who you are, your background,
sure,
and kind of currently what you're up to?
sure. So right now, I work in the family business, which is Manning Personnel Group. And what we do is we're a recruiting firm based in Boston, primarily working in the greater Boston marketplace in pairing up job seekers with opportunities, running the gamut in terms of nature, in terms of the G&A umbrella. So that is to say, we work in anything from accounting and finance to human resources, operations, administrative support, some marketing, some sales roles, that type of thing, but across a variety of different industries and all sorts of different levels. So if you came to me, Drew, and you said, hey, listen, I need a receptionist for my biotech company, say, great, we got it. At the same time, if you said, I need a CFO for my manufacturing firm, okay, got it, we're on it. So we do kind of all sorts of those different types of roles. Got to the family business, and that's what it is. My old man started it 28 years ago. But I got to the family business through a kind of circuitous route. I studied history in college, not sure really what I wanted to do with that. So I tried teaching, I tried some management consulting, I tried government and politics. Nothing really sat right until ultimately landing on with the family business, which I joined about 10 years ago.
Give us a little bit more insight. So you're literally kind of probably in the most booming industry to be in right now, where it's, you're connecting job seekers to job providers. What's the kind of state of the employment market in Boston, or kind of maybe employment market in Boston, and then if you see some things across the country or across the globe
Yeah.
with COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, candidly, it's frozen the marketplace in a very unique way, right? So as I mentioned, Dad started the business 28 years ago, and so during that time, of course, we've been through 9/11, we've been through the real estate crisis in 2007, 2008. We've been through the dot-com bubble. All of these different kind of blips, if you will, in terms of the economy, had their own unique feel. This is unlike anything else in that it paralyzed the market. But what's good about this is, by all accounts, the fundamentals of the economy are still there. Boston is also in a very unique space in that some industries are, I hate to say the word kind of recession proof, but they're protected in ways that maybe other industries, other geographic areas are not. And so health and life sciences, for example, is actually doing really, really well right now. Depending on who you're talking about or who you're working with, some of these firms are receiving huge infusions of cash because they might be working on a coronavirus vaccine or what have you. So in some ways, the market has really paused. It's kind of like life in many ways, right? Has paused for the last 6 weeks or so. And I do think, that you're going to see that for the next month or two here. But in many ways, some of the fundamentals of the economy and some industries are well positioned to flick that switch right back on. And so we're having a lot of conversations. We're placing candidates right now, despite some of these kind of major issues. We're placing candidates as we speak, in a variety of industries, from manufacturing, working with one right now in terms of HR, and then working, as I mentioned, with some health and life science firms as well.
That makes perfect sense, and I guess it's kind of just following where the needs are in the economy right now. So it's big things.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And you're seeing that. You're seeing those firms that, those articles are coming out, and you're seeing Amazon's doing really well, right? I
Right.
mean, because that space is booming. So you're right. So if you kind of see, in this kind of a place that kind of an industry or, firm, if you will, is going to do well in a good way, we already have some inroads in there. And so thankfully we're doing well in that sense.
Tim, let's time travel a little bit back
Great.
to your early stages, ages 22, when you were graduating BC. And now you mentioned that you kind of jumped around to a few different jobs. Could you go deeper into kind of what you're thinking as a senior? You're in the kind of heart of the recession back in 08, 09. What did that job market look like, and kind of what was your thought process?
Yeah, so it was really funny in that I think in many ways there are parallels, right? I think I looked at the job market, and again, there was the recession that you were dealing with no matter what. So it was a limited number of opportunities versus the last 5 years, if you will. They've been incredibly robust. So back in that time, I was having a very realistic kind of approach towards. Part of it is just getting an opportunity, and sometimes not trying to find the perfect thing. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So part of it was kind of setting an expectation of what is a healthy kind of role to find. And then part of it was balancing well, what did I enjoy doing at school? And I think one of the challenges that I think academia faces, and I certainly experienced, was, well, I enjoyed reading big books, analyzing it, talking about it, reviewing it together, that type of thing. And ultimately, that's a lot of what history is, if you will. The problem was, well, okay, well, where does that manifest itself in terms of a career? And there's not a lot of places, right? There's some obvious ones. But what I had to do was find what were those functional skills I liked to employ. So what do I mean by that? What were some of the things I like to do on a day-to-day basis, whether that was in my extracurriculars, whether that was with my friends at school, or whether that was in the classroom, that I wanted to see in my next role. So the analytical skills, yes, 100%, but I also had to realize, but I enjoy building relationships with people. I enjoy communicating, talking, understanding someone's story. And it was through that kind of journey, in the context of, hey, the perfect role may not be out there right now because it is a recession, and then finding what does that equal in terms of an opportunity. So found some contract work, again, through the family business, but found some contract work in an insurance firm. It wasn't a dream job, but it was a great learning experience, and ultimately helped put me on the path towards saying, what does this role look like on a day-to-day basis? In some ways, it's hard to kind of visualize. You have to do it.
So could you kind of talk a little bit more, because this is something we're trying to kind of hone in on the 21st century career journey, is kind of the toolbox, or kind of the skills or tools that you collected at an early age that you use as you continue to climb.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny. I think ultimately there a lot of them were there and had been kind of developing over a period of time, but didn't realize that was something I wanted to find. And that was, again, relationship building. So if you look at some of the things I did before I got into the family business of recruiting, I did teaching. I did, again, as I said, government and politics. I worked in management consulting. These are all things where, again, understanding a space, an industry, a story, whatever it is, understanding something, synthesizing it, and then effectively communicating it through a relationship that you develop. That's the fundamentals of all of those things I just mentioned. And it is the fundamental aspect of recruiting as well. And so what I was able to do was realize, hey, there's taking large data sets, as I would do in a history class, read, understand, synthesize, and then take it, and what do we learn from it? I would do that in teaching. I would do that in government and politics, right? And then, but I also kind of realized at the same time, there were some fundamental aspects about teaching or government or management consulting where I wasn't enjoying the journey. The end result might be exciting, right? So I might have enjoyed being a principal of my alma mater, BC High, or I might have appreciated being, a partner at a consulting firm. But the 10, 15, 20 years it takes to get there, I don't know that I would have enjoyed that journey. I don't know if I would have enjoyed that day to day. And so it was through that conversation internally as well as with others that I realized you have to make sure you're enjoying the day to day and the journey as well. And if you do, then that points you in the right direction in terms of where the end result will bring you as well.
Absolutely. And it's crucial if you think about just enjoying the journey, because you're at work for 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And if you want the end result, but you're miserable on the path to get there, that by the time you do get to the end result, it will kind of be for nothing.
Yeah.
So very powerful. So when you're working with, clients, or when you're advising young people, kind of what are some actionable insights that you can give to our students from your experience?
So in terms of when I look back at BC and when I realized some of the more fundamental experiences that I went through that were transformational for me, I certainly look at one of my favorite phrases is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you look at maybe an international service trip, which I went on and then I led. You look at joining a group you maybe never thought you would do. I joined Hello Shovelhead, the sketch comedy group on campus. These are things that I didn't do in high school. I didn't, I wasn't led in that direction, but it's through maybe kind of exploring things you're uncomfortable with that you find some new passions, some new interests. I think separately, it also gets you comfortable in being able to say, as a young professional, as a young adult, if I need to network, well, hey, I've been on stage in front of 200 drunk kids on a Saturday night. I can go talk to one person, over a coffee. So sometimes it's by having those foundational experiences, it prepares you to then have the other ones. So no time, I think, like college, especially BC, that offers so many opportunities to put yourself out there. I can tell you that you don't want to miss a lot of Saturday nights with your roommates and your friends. Those are incredibly important as well. But if you can get out there, go join a club, if you can go on a service trip, if you can meet some new people you wouldn't have otherwise met, build relationships with folks that you wouldn't have otherwise come in contact with, that I think is maybe the most important thing that will then prepare you for the next few conversations, next few steps in your early professional career.
So important. And like you just said, it's establishing those foundational skills that help you climb as you go. So I'm a student and maybe I'm a freshman to,
Sure.
anywhere in the gambit. But, when I'm thinking about the kind of current situation we're in, kind of what do you think is
Yeah.
a great way to take advantage of the time we're in?
So I think there's a couple different answers just based upon what background you're looking for, right? So if you're in, if you're in the school of nursing, or if you're in the school of management and you want to be an accountant, or again, you want to be a nurse or what have you, I think you really want to be the expert in the space that you're developing a proficiency in. Okay. Now, for, let's say, maybe the majority, or at least a plurality of students at BC, where maybe they're in the School of Arts and Sciences, I think I would continue developing that jack of all trades kind of mentality and skill set. In that's one of the greatest calling cards you're going to have when you're coming out. You're not just one thing or another. Instead, your opportunity to grow and develop within an organization. You go in entry level, but your ability to pivot and grow and develop makes you an asset that any hiring manager will want. Because I'm not just hiring you for one role, I'm thinking about you for the next 5 or 10 years. And so if you can continue developing that diverse skill set, I think that's huge. If you do know early on, as you said, maybe in a freshman year, I want to get into Big Four, I want to get into accounting, or again, I want to get into nursing. What we have found is you want to then try and be the expert in your class amongst all of your peers in a particular area, or continue to develop and hone that skill set. Not, of course, not to sacrifice the other skills, but if you know what you want, drive hard after it, continue developing the skills and round it out. And then, of course, this is maybe another question, Drew, but lean on the network, right? So if you know the areas that you're interested in, reach out to them. The BCI alumni group is bar none the most powerful in the Boston marketplace. I can tell you that hands down. And so reach out to them, build those relationships. Even freshmen, they can say, here's what you want to start thinking about over the next couple of years, right? I was in your shoes 5, 10, 15 years ago, so I can give you guidance and thoughts. So lean on them because they want to be a resource.
What's the best way that I can lean on the network, especially now?
Everyone is home. Everyone's home. So everyone's at their computer. So my experience, I think LinkedIn is probably the most powerful tool in terms of just finding, reaching out, and connecting to folks. Outside of that, asking if you can have a quick conversation for 10 or 15 minutes is very easy. Now, it's not fraught with danger, but the expectation is that if you're going to take some of my time, and this is across the board, I think anyone who you're just kind of quote unquote cold calling out of nowhere and saying, hey, can I pick your brain? Of course, but you got to do your homework. Right? The presumption is that you're calling me because you know what I do, you know who I am, you know how I can be a resource. If you call me and you start asking about a career in public relations, I'm going to say, I really don't do that. And so, I can try and find somebody, but I can't be your gopher. I can't try and find something for you. You got to do that yourself. So the presumption being that you're doing some hard work and you're setting the groundwork, that foundation in the same way for a robust conversation, because you've done your homework, you know what I may or may not be able to do, what questions I may or may not be able to answer. So everyone's home. Generally, people are willing to help, and the BC network is generally the most robust, especially if you're looking to stay in Boston.
The Zoom room sweet spot. And essentially, you take advantage of the time you're in, but come prepared. Tim, could you talk a little bit more? I want to backtrack just a little bit. Being a history guy, BC guy, I know you're a big Michael Himes fan.
That's right.
Could you kind of talk around his philosophy around finding the work of the good, kind of like the three pillars that he has?
Right. Yeah, and for me, that was one of the kind of, again, transformational things when I was realizing what do I want to do, right? Because for years coming out, I had the family business that I really didn't want to explore, whether it's pride or naivete, I don't know. It's probably a little bit of everything. But I really wanted to try and find and answer those questions of, again, where does the world need you? What are you good at? These kind of fundamental things that Father Himes asked you to try and answer, and the world asked you to answer. And it was through doing that I realized, I think we're taught that in some ways being successful and maybe making a lot of money and all these sorts of things can be bad, or they can be things that, hey, the only way you can really serve your community is if you work at a nonprofit, and you don't make any money, and you're, living paycheck to paycheck, and there's such incredible honor in doing those sorts of things. So I'm not trying to denigrate that, but I think I was maybe confused by that. I was, studying theology as well as history, and I wanted to serve my larger community. And I think sometimes you can misconstrue working in the private sector, and trying to make money, if you will, and saying, hey, is that at loggerheads with, serving my community and fulfilling some of those questions that Father Himes asks. I think I found that, no, you can do both. You can. I think it's through being good at what you do at work that I can help a recent grad coming up, through their career, help them, guide them, be a sounding board for them 5-10 years into their career, even if I can't place them. But it's still through these conversations that I'm good at what I do, I'm fulfilling that responsibility, and I'm also doing something that my community needs and that I'm good at, right? So again, answering these questions and realizing that it doesn't have to mean, picking, literally turning your life upside down in order to fulfill them. I think you can do both. I believe I'm doing them. I can, of course, we always find fault, and there's Catholic guilt in everything we do. But I think it was through that kind of reflection that I realized there's a way to balance both of those things.
Wonderful. And it's funny, I have it on my bookshelf back
Oh, yeah.
here. But it's a different, Father Himes has his concept, and I think someone kind of took it and iterated it to the 21st century. Jim Collins, Good to Great. The hedgehog theory, it's kind of the same thing. You're like, where does the world need you?
Yep.
What are you deeply passionate about? What can you become the best at? And how can you also support yourself, the economic engine, right? How can you support yourself and then support your families, community, et cetera, because you need to hit all three. And I'll make sure that we have that linked in the show for students and anybody to kind of see and kind of think about and reflect on, because that is one of the foundational points in a career. So really appreciative of that. Tim, when we think about the future of work and kind of the acceleration in terms of technology, and how it's played a key role in being able to work effectively remotely, what do you see from the labor market in terms of, what jobs may look like post COVID-19?
What we're seeing, I think, is a few different industries, in particular in Boston, and this is kind of a roundabout way of answering, but you look at health and life sciences, as you said, healthcare, these are certain things that are big in Boston. I think you're going to find that in continuing that vein, software, technology, these are firms that are also kind of growing at a rapid rate, especially in the Boston marketplace. So I think part of it is that you look at the market cap for Zoom right now, for example, and I think it's the combination of all of the airline industry together right now, right? So I think there's part of it this is maybe going to accelerate a trend that was already in place. So you're going to see, both from an interview process, you need to learn how to communicate. And there are YouTube videos about this kind of stuff, Drew, all that, everything from how to interview to how to work, how to be overly communicative. Everything about our day in life could potentially at least start to change through this, nexus point. And so, give you a prime example. I had a candidate who just started contracting with a client of ours, and after being there for a week, company shut down, right? So they started working remotely. She'd only been there for a week, so she's getting onboarded. All of a sudden, what do you need to learn how to do? You need to learn how to communicate. You need to learn how to share. You need to learn how to ask questions. You need to learn how to get feedback. You need to learn how to not take things personally, because, of course, how you say something on a phone call might be interpreted differently because you don't have the body language that accompanies it. So everything from style, communication, follow through, again, as I started saying, industries that are going to do well could start to change, and I think are starting to change because of this. And so it's being mindful of maybe that the normal ways of doing things, the normal ways of doing business, they're going to start going out the window at least a little bit. And you need to not rely necessarily on the age-old kind of methodology, but instead you need to rewrite the rules. And so especially when you're earlier in your career, or you're facing a dynamic like I just mentioned, over communicate, over ask questions, because ultimately you don't want to be presuming you're doing it the right way, because that's just the way it used to be done, because that chapter, I think, is closed.
So one of the most important skills right now, and as we continue, is kind of communication, but communication now is through the web. And, maybe an advantage that younger people have with, access to iPhones and everything, but being able to be comfortable, FaceTiming or Zooming and kind of having that able to connect with people and be able to feel them without actually being in the room with them.
That's right.
So that's awesome. And I think it's going to be very impactful, after we see a life after COVID-19.
Right.
It's the kind of hybrid model of, it's not going to be entirely like this, but it's not going to go back to how it was.
No.
Good.
Can't see it being the case. I'm with you.
Tim, this has been great. Really have enjoyed talking to you. And before we kick you off the show, it's been a pleasure. We got to take you to the once an Eagle, always an Eagle. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready to rock.
Good. Okay, so we'll start easy. It's a Friday night. We're coming back from a night out with the friends.
Okay.
And it's about 1:30. We go to Lower Live. What's your order at late night?
Oh man. I'm generally, my eyes are bigger than my stomach. So I'm ordering like 15 things. I get through like a half of it, and then I just feel, again, Catholic guilt, feel bad about that. So I'm smart. I'm hydrating. I'm at least a little bit. I'm hydrating. I'm getting some of the Powerades. I'm trying to get that so I'm not waking up feeling like a trash can in the morning. And then I think I'm going heavy on the chicken fingers and fries.
Chicken fingers and fries. That's a classic. That's a classic. Can't go wrong. Staple. Late night staple.
That's right.
Second question: favorite professor, administrator, or staff at BC?
Oh wow. So thankfully was able to be get impacted by quite a few folks there. Oh geez. I think from a professor, I'll probably go with Jacobs, Professor Jacobs.
Professor Jacobs.
Yeah, just great courses. I think he used to be an actor, and so he's in classes and he's teaching you something, and then he puts on a persona and he does an accent, and it's powerful. It really gets you to kind of experience it. And again, being the history major, I just couldn't pass that up.
Absolutely. And final question: before we graduate from BC, what's one thing every student should do?
So, Drew, I think I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. I think I would say like a service trip.
Service trip.
Yeah.
Service trip, travel, experience a different culture.
That's
I'm sure it changed your perspective on a lot of things.
It did. I don't think there's any way it can't. If you do it the right way, that is to say, if you keep an open mind, if you learn about people's stories, if you get outside your comfort zone, it'll impact you.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Tim, what's the best way if a student resonated with this conversation, wants to learn more about you, what you do, and kind of employment markets? What's the best way a student can get in contact with you?
So we're really, active on LinkedIn. Of course, our website's manningpg.com. So that's Manning Personnel Group, but manningpg.com. So website, of course, all my contact and ways to reach me is there. But as far as LinkedIn goes, honest, I live on it, right? So it's the way we're finding and connecting with candidates and clients. So you reach out to me there. I'm usually pretty responsive. And if I'm not, again, I blame the kids, but if I'm not, you always just ping me again and I'll get right back to you. I always want to help a fellow Eagle.
There it is. And we'll make sure to have that in the show notes. Tim, really appreciate it.
Same.
Really appreciate it. Good talking. Talk soon.
You as well.
Bye.